It started when my dad had moved to Maryland with my grandpa from England, and he lived with my grandpa for about 9 years. He was 9 years old when he left my grandpa's house. Grandpa used to be a big drinker, and he'd whip up on everybody. So Dad just said, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm out of here."
I was born in Carrington, North Dakota in 1936. And I was the second child. Came out to California when I was a year old with my little sister, with my big sister and my mom and dad. And I've lived in California all my life in California. We had a house that had a lot. And my dad was a farmer, so he would plant, I remember, corn on the cob and a lot of vegetables, and that's what we ate. And we would go out there and always get fresh corn on the cob and all of our vegetables and everything. And then we had the house, so it was really neat. My older sister's name is Donna. My youngest sister is named Judy, and that's what your mother was named after, was my younger sister. So that's where she gets her name. And then Uncle Jim.
He went to my Uncle Ernest's house. That's where I got my middle name, my name from, Ernest. And never did like that name. Then he got himself a stick and a handkerchief with a bandana on it, like you see the hobos did.
Yeah.
That's what he did. He hoboed across the United States, and he ended up down near San Pedro, right along the ocean. And what he did there, he worked for a construction company welding. He got out of the welding job on construction, and he started learning how to be a sea diver. He was over there in the late 30s until they went over to Hawaii, into Pearl Harbor. And that's where he did most of his diving when they were dredging Pearl Harbor Basin out, preparing for what was going to take place later on. And it took place December 7th, 1941, when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor.
My mother and dad were farmers. Both of them came from farm families. My Grandpa Cope came from Ireland to Canada, married Emma Baker, moved to North Dakota, and then had my dad and his family. And then they had us, and we moved to California. My mother came from Wisconsin. Family came from Wisconsin. Moved to North Dakota. My grandpa Thurston was a farmer. Grandpa Webb was a farmer. My grandma Webb married my grandpa Thurston. My mother, last name was Thurston. She married my dad Cope. My grandma Thurston and my grandpa Thurston were farmers, and then he actually worked in an office. He didn't just farm. He had a day job too. My mom was the tomboy. She liked working outside, and her twin sister Lula liked working inside. So my mom was out in the barn lots of times with the horses and hay, like I like to do if I could. And my dad went to work for him. And my dad met my mom there. When we first came to California, I can't remember, but I know we went to Palm Springs and we lived in a tent. And I had an outside toilet built into the house. 4 of us slept in there, and we'd go to the bathroom outside.
That's where my dad had met my mom. In about the 30s, they came back and they moved to Compton. He had gotten a job with the LA County sanitation districts. I used to go meet him on the road, hop on my bicycle and drive down Alameda Avenue between the railroad tracks we lived in. Hop on my bike, meet him down at the store, and we'd come home. I'd come home with him every day. And it wasn't as bad. It wasn't nothing near to what it is today. When I was a little kid, probably 10 or 11, I could walk downtown and not be bothered. I had one older sister, one older brother, myself, and a younger sister. My oldest sister's name was Louise. My brother's name was George Jr. Of course, I was Lonnie. I've always been Lonnie. And then my other sister was Catherine. My mom's name was Josephine Lani Shaw. Mom played in the movies. She had a bit part in the movies. So rather than being called Josephine Shaw, she was called Mary Shaw. Okay, this movie here is the old picture Rain with Walter Houston and Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford. She played in this picture Rain. She played in the original picture of Tunnels of Tahiti. That was with Guy Kibbe. Then there was the first picture Hurricane that she played with Dorothy Lamour and John Hall. She played in was Mutiny on the Bounty with Charles Lawton. She was playing in these movies. I was probably in grade school, probably kindergarten to second grade. She had incorporated me in going up there to do some stage playing and some other things up there. And
so you did a little acting too, huh?
No, I didn't, because I didn't want to do what they wanted me to do.
What they want you to do?
Well, they wanted me to get up there and dance. I don't dance. I'm a guy. I don't dance. I ain't gonna do that. And they wanted me to take my shirt off. I said, take my shirt off. You got a skinny body here. You want me to take my shirt off because I'm gonna be a skinny little runt kid? I said, I ain't gonna do that. So there was a lot of things I wasn't gonna do. I didn't feel right doing it, so I just didn't do it. So that was the extent of my casting and the ability of acting. I wouldn't do it. The photos where my dad and I and my brother worked. Of course, that was in Compton. That was just a couple blocks from where we used to live. So Dad walked to work. I walked to school. We all walked to school. Nobody rode anything unless a friend had a car or something, but we all walked to school. And my mother died when I was 16. She died at age 42. She was a big woman, as you can see, and she died with a lot of fat around her heart.
He said one time he did something wrong, and he went and got under the bed, and his mom couldn't get to him because she was a big woman. He said he made George and Catherine pick the bed up so we could take the broom and get him out from under the bed. And he said if he didn't want to say, he listened to her because she was a very not strict, but if she said something, you better do it.
And then my dad, he died in 1985.
I think his dad was more the easygoing person, Grandpa Shaw.
I played a lot of football. I played a lot of football all during my junior high school. I only went to college about a year, not quite a full year, and then I went into the Army. I went into the Army in 1953.
I lived on Plum Street, and we went to Washington I went to Washington Grammar School in Compton on Plum Street. I still remember that.
Before I met Grandma, I'd been living at the beach.
And then we moved to Spring Street, and I went to Enterprise High School there. And Lani went to Roosevelt, and I went to Enterprise High School there.
I became a #1 beach bum down there, and I lived down there for about a year. I walked off of a good job that I had working for the Southern California Water Company. This neighbor of mine, we went down to Manhattan Beach on the weekends. In February of '53, I decided to leave there and come back to Compton to live with. I lived with my sister and her husband, and they were renting an apartment from her girlfriend's parents. They had an apartment out in the garage, and so I was staying there with my sister and her husband.
Julie said, let's go out in the apartment and see Catherine and Dick. I said, okay. We went out there, and there was Catherine and Dick, and there was this good-looking Hawaiian sitting there, and it was Lani, your grandpa.
I had hair. I had a ton of hair. It was just all over the place. It wasn't even combed or anything. I never did run around with any, hardly, I had pants on, but I was always barefooted and didn't have a shirt on.
And he's sitting there with a pair of jeans on, no shoes, no shirt, long curly hair, big blue eyes.
So, I wasn't skinny anymore, but I wasn't no big bruiser either.
Good looking guy. Quiet, real reserved.
Like me.
Like you. And I never thought looking at him that I was ever going to spend 64 years with him. When you meet someone for the first time, and he didn't speak, he was very quiet, very reserved, very mannerly.
My sister asked, "Gee, would you like to go on a date with Lani?"
And I said, well, if he'd cut his hair, I'd go on a date with him.
And I had my hair was like an afro, it was just as bushy as could be.
So I guess 2 or 3 weeks went by and I never heard from anybody, and called me up and wanted to know if I'd go out with him.
I went ahead and I got a haircut, so I guess she looked interested.
I said, did you cut your hair? And they said, yeah. I said, okay.
So we went out, and it was a coupe, it was a Chevy coupe.
So we went on a date, we double dated, and we went into a drive-in theater. And they had Catherine and Dick in the back, and Lani in the front.
She was sitting on the far side of the car, and I was sitting at the driver's seat, and I was watching away, and Catherine and Dick, I know they could see because they could see between the two of us, And so they moved over to the right. That put Gene in front of them. Gene, move over next to Lani because we can't see.
I finally got over to sit next to him because Dick and Catherine couldn't see the movie.
Well, where were you sitting before? I says, don't make any difference, move. But we want to sit together, and we can't sit together because you're too far over on that side. So she moved over. I didn't, nothing happened.
But your grandpa was so mannerly. He was such a gentleman. If he hadn't been a gentleman, I probably wouldn't have gone out with him another time. We just wanted to get closer together. So nothing happened after that, and I guess I went over a couple times later and seen her. And after that, Lani was at the house every day.
I had all the money I needed. I didn't want to, I didn't have to ask my dad for any money. I had all I wanted.
He wasn't working. He didn't have a car. He didn't have any money. Nothing but him.
I would go over to center of Compton, down at the donut shop in Compton, and I would meet her after school there.
And he would come over and he'd walk me home from school. He'd walk me over from the high school, and he'd walk me home. And he didn't spend any money on me, so and that was okay. I wasn't after him for his money.
She was a coat checker.
And I checked the coats, and I would make hamburgers and hot dogs and Cokes and things like that. And he would come and help me.
And she said, "You want to come over?" I said, "Yeah, I'll go over there with you." So I'd go over there with her and go in there, and we'd check coats in together. And kids were starting to say, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, what are you guys doing? Do you guys kind of doing this or doing that?" I said, "No, we're not doing nothing, and nothing was going on or anything else." Just, well, that sure makes it awful handy to be in there, doesn't it?
I just fell in love with him. And he walked me home, and for 6 months we went together, and then we got married.
We'll be married 65 years in August.
August 4th, 1954, we got married. I just heard that my husband just told me after 64 years that Grandpa, because of his skin color, didn't want him to marry me. I didn't know that.
We got married, and we found a little garage apartment in Compton.
We had Scott first, and then we had Ricky, and then we had Judy, and we had Laura.
Scott we had first. We had him when we were living in Compton, and when we moved over to San Vicente in Paramount, we had Rick. And then we moved down into Lakewood. Of course, it was only a one bedroom, one bathroom apartment, so we had her sister living with us at the time.
I saved a lot of money when he was overseas, so when he got home, I had money to buy a couch and the chairs and a refrigerator and a washing machine and everything. So I wanted to make a home for him when he got home.
So we found a little 2-bedroom house in Paramount. It was on 7th City Street.
I worked at Robert Shaw's Thermostats in Long Beach, and that's where I worked while he was gone. Bought my first car there. I bought a 49 Plymouth Coupe, and I took my dad out. I saved $400 up, and I asked him if he'd go out with me, and he picked out the coupe. He said, "I'm going to get you a 1-seater. I don't want you piling a bunch of kids in this car." I said, "Fine with me." So I loved that car.
64 years ago. Am I supposed to remember that?
I don't think so, Grandpa. I don't think so.
Just off of Pioneer Boulevard, there was a Imperial Estates houses. That's where we had Judy and Laura, right behind the school, right behind the grammar school. Cut a hole in the fence, they could walk right through the schoolyard. We lived in that house for about 17 years, I think it is.
Well, we used to go up to Placerville all the time and see my sister. And we'd visit there, and we always wanted to get out of LA, but we didn't know how.
And we came up to Red Bluff, we came through here and went up to Oregon to see some friends up there. And we thought, man, no, look how nice it is. It's not even crowded at all, or anything on the freeways or anything like that. You know, there's no traffic at all. And so we mulled it over and we thought about it. And so, yeah, we put in an offer on 20 acres up there on Hooker Creek Road.
We lived down Stousdale. We were going to Del Amo Baptist. We lived on Rossford, 21325 Rossford. I still remember
So
that.
in 1977, you guys moved to Red Bluff.
We moved to Red Bluff.
Well, when we moved up here, of course, yeah, we had the 2 girls, and they kind of wanted to, but they didn't really want to. They missed the big cities. They missed the malls and all that stuff up there. Here, they didn't have malls. They had a town that closed at 5 o'clock in the Sunday afternoon, you know, and they lived out in the boonies where there were no neighbors hardly or anything else. So, yeah, they didn't like that too well, but.
Put the mobile on the 20 acres and became farmers out there. Not farmers, but country people. I loved it out there. We stayed there for 17 years, I think. We were there for 17 years.
Because we had put in an application to get a handicapped child that was going to go ahead and care provide for.
I was working at Dairy Queen at the time. I worked at Dairy Queen, and then I worked in the strawberries, and I worked in the walnuts. I had 3 jobs, and kept the girls in clothes and stuff for school, and because we took a half a cut and pay, and I usually was used to working in factories, but they didn't have any up here.
They called Jean. I told her that we have a little baby. She's 14 months old, up here in Mercy Hospital. We want you to come up, and we want to see how you are going to react with this little 14-month-old baby.
And there was this beautiful little white, she has white skin, she's Spanish, Salinas, Tracy Salinas. She's Spanish, but she has the white skin, big brown eyes, and black hair. Beautiful little girl. Tracy was 14 months old, weighed 13 pounds, and we went to the hospital. I went to the hospital for 5 days every day, and the nurse came in and showed me how to feed her.
That she had already been in there several times for malnutrition.
About the 3rd day, I shut the door to the nurse. So if I couldn't do it alone, I couldn't take her home. So they watched me through the glass at Bernstein TV. You can see everything that's going on. I went in there and fed her and got her fed. On a Sunday, they called us up and told us to come pick Tracy up. And David and his wife had just gotten through with their children, and they had a crib and sheets and everything that you would need for a baby. We didn't have to go out and buy anything hardly except clothes. So Lani went down and said, well, we got to go pick our kid up, our baby up. So he went down there and got all that stuff, set it up, and Sunday afternoon we went down to the hospital and brought Tracy home. Laura went with us, and we stopped at the store and bought some clothes and diapers.
And when we were feeding her, she wouldn't she wouldn't eat at the kitchen table. She'd eat once, but she wouldn't eat twice.
I'd have to move her from room to room to get her to eat.
You fed her in one room, the next night you had to feed her in a different room.
And finally, she eventually started eating on her own and did good.
We showed her a lot of love and showed her a lot of care and tried to play with her, and even you and Matt would come up and play with her and do things with her. And once she found out that she was in a place that people cared for her and loved her, then she started to changing. Her lifestyle started to change. She started to smile more.
She was just a blessing to all of us. I really enjoyed having her. I know that Tracy. I know I was the type of mother that at school that probably the teachers didn't want to see coming, but I was there all the time to make sure she was okay.
So we cared for her all this time, and so just this last June, she got sick in June, earlier part of May, probably latter part of May, early part of June. She started getting sick. She didn't want to drink water. She didn't want to eat or anything, and her whole body was. We didn't realize it, but her whole body was starting to shut down.
And a Dr. Taylor came in and told me, he said, "Mom," he said, you need to take Tracy home." And I said, he said, looking at her chart and looking at everything that's wrong with her, he said, "I doubt that she'd even bypass, that she would even make it through an operation."
Mrs. Shaw, he said, "You had this child for 38 years."
He said, "Mom," he said, "you've done a good job." He said, "People with cerebral palsy with Tracy's conditions don't live to be 38 years old." And he said, "Take her home." So they sent hospice home with her. I couldn't have taken her home.
June the 25th, about 9 o'clock in the morning, she went ahead and passed away. She passed on, which was a blessing because of the fact that you don't have wheelchairs in heaven.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Gene and I had always had kids around us, since we had Scott to our 4 kids to even taking care of handicapped kids down in Southern California. And the thing of us taking care of Tracy was never a problem. It never dawned on us that we would get tired of it. There was no such thing as getting tired of taking care of somebody, And I guess the fact is that you have something built into you that you say, well, I can do this and I'll do it. I take care of it and I did it. And that was the extent of it. You just did what you had to do, and not complain about it or anything. So, and don't make a hardship of it. Never did try to say, well, look what I'm doing. That's a bunch of baloney. Look what I'm doing. Nobody made you do it. You did it because you wanted to do it.
That's right.
And you don't. When you want to do something, you don't expect credit for it.
Yeah.
You just do it because you wanted to do it.
That's right.
It was something else. It was good. We've always had kids. Like I said, we've always had kids around us up until 80, 82, and 85. Always had kids around us someplace or another.